Welcome to Block 1, Unit 2 of International Marketing, which is Conceptual Framework. So, before we proceed for the Unit 2, I just wanted to give exactly what we have discussed last class. So, exactly last class we have talked about what is international marketing, what are the different definitions of international marketing, and how international marketing is different from domestic marketing. Even if you are operating in the domestic market, but you have to have the knowledge about international market. Also, the process of international market, and also we have discussed about the various opportunities and threats that is associated with the international marketing. Even if the opportunities are there, but also there are certain limitations, certain challenges are there when you are dealing with the international marketing. So when you talk about the conceptual framework, here we'll be dealing with we'll be dealing with the conceptual framework, the dynamics of international trade and theories, stages of adopted by the firms, the process of internationalizations. The last one is the managerial orientations. These are the things we'll be dealing today. So before that, let us talk about any company. Before they enter to the international market, they have to go for the international trade. International trade is the first stage of international marketing where the countries who is having some specialization, who is have relative advantage on certain things, they go for the international trade. International trade gives a lot of benefits in the terms of that is exactly the companies who are going for the international trade, they are also getting revenue. Second one is they are also getting the benefit of commercializations, commercial benefits and monetary benefits. Second one is the government which is encouraging to go for the international trade, that is also getting revenue in terms of taxations and duties. And third one is the consumers are also getting benefit of international trade, because if you see the standard of living of the consumer has enhanced after the international trade. And fourth one is the companies who are involved in the international trade, they are also having their own competitive advantage. So this is exactly we talk about the international trade. When you talk about the international trade, let us activity one, let us talk about identify the products available in your local markets offered by the international firms and name of these products. So if talking about that, there are three examples I will cite here. One of the example is soft drink companies, Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Both are involved in the international marketing, international trade. So they have their presence in the different countries and they have also widespread across different globes, and they're getting benefit of that. And also they do have improving the life of the people, life of the customers, standard of living of the customers. Second one is QSR, quick service restaurant are also, that is McDonald's, KFC, they are also are example of international marketing. They are increasing their business across the globe, across the boundaries. Also, they know what is the requirement of the local people. Accordingly, they prepare their foods, and also they are involved in the business activities. The third one is FMCG company like HUL, P&G. They are also involved in the international marketing, because if you see there, they are introducing products from the international products, and they are also have their presence across globe, and they are getting benefit. Also, government is also getting benefit. The consumer is also getting the benefit in terms of the revenue, in terms of the standard of living. That is the three things. So basically, what exactly we discussed? We discussed about the international trade. International trade is international marketing comes after the international trade. Any company wants to enter the international marketing, they have to understand the international trade. That is exactly how, that is when they have a specialization, any country or any company having specialization or relative advantage in any particular product, they go for the international trade. The benefits of international trade in terms of revenue, profitability, they are getting. Also, the same time, the government is also getting the benefit of maximizing the revenue from the terms of taxes and duties. And finally, the international trade helps the people to get to improve their standard of living. These are the benefits. Besides that, also there are certain limitations. The companies who are involved in the international trade, the companies has to understand the environmental aspects, because environmental aspect is one of the concern which includes the political environment, the economic environment, the social environment, and the technological environment. The companies who are involved in the international, they also get the shock of this political instability, economic instability, social and cultural aspect, and technological disruptions. So, in terms of benefits, also there are also challenges when you are going for the international trade. Second, we talk about what are the objective. The objective of the international trade is to earn profit in the foreign currency. Inputs and output can be measured in money terms of expand the customer base. Hence, the market share of diversifying the international market. Consumers get access to quality, low cost, and innovative products. International trade and commerce promote idea and interdependence among the countries. These are the objectives of international trade. Then we talk about what is the principles of underlining international marketing. So international marketing, when you talk about the companies before they go for the international marketing, they have to identify which market they have to enter. The market, there are, even if there are so many markets are there, but they have to analyze, they have to go for the research and development, and they have to understand which market gives them a lot of benefits. The second one is they also understand what is the preference of the customers, that is in the particular countries. Then accordingly, they design the product and services to match the requirement of the people. That is the three things you have to understand when you go for that is international marketing. When you go for the international marketing, the main objective of international marketing, exactly we are talking about, you have to understand what are the customer value and customer value equations. Customer value is nothing but this is that is the ratio between perceived benefit to perceived cost. Perceived benefit to perceived cost is known as the customer value, and the company has to involve in generating that is customer value, so that is the companies like some of the company international companies, they are keeping the prices low because they know that if they are keeping the prices low, the people perceive that is one of the value product. So that is why the people are going to that, preferring to that company. That is one of the benefits. Second one is when you are going for the international marketing, you also have the getting the competitive advantage, sustainable competitive advantage, differential advantage you are getting, because you do have advantage in one market, but when you are entering to the other markets, you are getting advantage of that. That is, you talk about the second one. The third one, you talk about the focus on delivering the customer value. The companies who are involved in the international marketing, they try to deliver the best value to the customers. Because in the beginning, I told you that is you have to identify the target market, then you have to design your offerings, then you have to deliver that product. So here we talk about the company has to deliver the best customer value to the customers in terms of low price, in terms of technology, in terms of product, in terms of promotions or pricing. That is all about the things we're talking about. But the first one is customer value in terms of cost and benefits. Customer value can be measured. The ratio between perceived benefits divided perceived cost is known as the customer value. The value equation can be managed better way so that the customer can be create a perception that is getting the best value from the product and services, which exactly managed by the international companies. How they are keeping the price low, they are trying to manage the creating perceptions, that is we are providing the best quality of product with low price. The companies who are involved in the international marketing, they are also having their own competitive advantage and differential advantage they are getting in terms of that is price, in terms of quality, their technology, they are getting the competitive advantage. Third one is that is superior value that is can be provided to the customers in terms of that is that is in your terms of the performance, in terms of the product, price, and promotions. These are the three things when you're talking about the principle of, that is principle underlying the international marketing. International marketing, when you talk about international marketing, the conceptual framework, if you talk about the conceptual framework, there are five stages, in which five, six, there are seven stages, the way you enter to the international market. The organization, before they enter to the international market, they have to understand what is the what is the environmental, that is they have to analyze the environment. They have to analyze the environment, and they have to analyze the organization resources and capabilities, and they have to understand the value of aspirations. If you talk about the environmental scanning, you know better the political environment, economic environment, social environment, and technology environment. That is has to be taken into consideration when you are going for the environmental scanning. You have the basic idea to know about the environment, what exactly the environment is all about. That is exactly, because suppose let us talk about political environment. When you are talking about the political environment, suppose India and Pakistan don't have a good political relationship. So that is why this clearly signifies that is, if you would like to enter to the Pakistan market, this is not the right time to enter to the internet Pakistan market, because India and Pakistan do not have a good political relationship. Second, we talk about the economic environment. When you talk about the economic environment includes the GDP, the interest rate, the bank rate, that all comes under the economic environment. The organization has to understand the economic environment, that, like talking about the developed countries, they consider refrigerator is a luxury item, where we consider refrigerator as a, they consider, sorry, the developed countries, they consider refrigerator as a necessity item, but whereas we consider refrigerator as a necessity item, because of the economic disparities between the two countries. We are in talking about the social environment, we consider, we wanted to have a, we believe in we believe in united family, but they believe in single structures. That is because of the social structures. And technologically they are developed, they are more advanced as compared to us. That is exactly the basic idea you will be getting when you are going for the environmental scanning. Second, we is talking about the organization resources and capability, because even if there are opportunities are there or threats are there, can we able to manage with your resources and capability to grab the opportunities, or you are able to convert the threat into an opportunity? So that is the big question in front of you. That is why the organization has to understand its capability, resources and capabilities, because even if there are opportunities are there, if you are not able to have the right kind of resources and right kind of capability, then you cannot capitalize that. Third one is, what is the expectations, what is the aspirations and value of the customers. Are they, people are looking for premium products or economic products, or they are becoming more, they are looking for the aesthetic sense. What exactly they are looking for, what is their value aspirations? So you have to think about all the things in the phase one of the conceptual framework. Second one involves closely interlinked to the phase one, allows the company to enter the SWOT analysis. What is SWOT analysis? Strength, we talk about strength is your inherent capabilities, weakness is your inherent disabilities, opportunities, opportunity favorable conditions, threat is unfavorable conditions. So when the company wanted to go for the SWOT analysis, because why? Because company tried to evaluate where do I stand in the competitions. Where do I stand in the competition? That is, you can get from the SWOT analysis. So that is, with that exactly the company is getting the right positions through the SWOT analysis. Third one is talking about the third one you talk about. It is a result of matching process of phase one and phase two, because you have to align, that is what are the opportunities and threats are there, and what are the resource and capability there. If they do not align together, then I cannot go for the international marketing. That is why I have to make a balance, or I have to make a alignment between what are the opportunities, what are the threats available, and along with that, what are my resources and capabilities. This is all about the third stage, where the organization is trying to match between the organization, the product, and the market. Here we talk about you have to go for a market orientation approach. You have to understand your strength and weakness, and also you have to see what is the requirement of the market. Even if there is a favorable conditions or a threat is there, how can I match my strength and weakness with the opportunity and threats which are available in the market? That is the third stage. Fourth stage talking about developing plans and programs. So it is the phase in which these objectives are converted into plans and programs necessary for achieving them. You have to identify what are the objectives. Here my objective is to enter to the international market, to have a market share, or to become the number one company, or to provide to provide the best things, superior product services to my customers. Whatever objectives you do have, whatever you would like to, objective is nothing but it is what you would like to achieve in the near future. So that is why when you are fixing your objectives, you always have to fix your objective with smart objective. The objective is smart objective in the sense S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for actionable, R stands for reasonable, T stands for time bound. That is exactly you have to go for objective which is can be which can satisfy the smart criteria. So if the objective is satisfying that, then you go for that objective. Then once you fix your objective, then you are going for the plans and programs. The plans are the program. What are the weekly plans, monthly plans, and programs? What are the plans and programs, and how to achieve that with the specific plans and program? That is the next. That is the fourth stage of the conceptual framework. When you are talking about the fifth one is all about committing resources. Once your objective is finalized, objective is fixed, then you are going for what? You are going for the fixing the resources to achieve the objectives. Then next one is your monitoring and control. That is the best one, because sometimes there is a deviation. Even if you have a plan, even if you have a programs, then there is always a deviations. So to manage the deviations, we have to have a control mechanism. That is, control mechanism is to manage the deviations. That is the next stage. And last stage is exactly you have to fix the time. Already I have talked about it in the smart objective. Already we have talked about you have to have a time frame. You cannot have a short-term objective, short-term goal, medium-term goal, and long-term objective to be identified. These are the 7 steps involved in the what? That is the conceptual framework. The first one is that is environmental scanning. Second one is generating. Second one is your generating alternatives. Third one is determining objectives. Fourth one is develop plans and programs. Fifth one is committing resources. Sixth one is monitoring and control, and seventh one is time scaling. These are the 7 steps involved in the conceptual framework of international marketing. Okay. Then let us talk about what are the theories of international trade. What are the theories? There are 6 theories are there as far as international trade is concerned. What are the theories? The first theory is theory of absolute advantage. Theory of absolute advantage is coined by, that is, Adam Smith. Adam Smith has coined the theory of absolute advantage, which talks about if a country is producing a refrigerator and washing machine. Suppose the country is like producing washing machine with $100 and refrigerator $150. Another country B, suppose country A is this, country B washing machine $120, that is $200 exactly on what? On refrigerators. So here you see the country A has to go for the, that is the product, because as far as the absolute, country A has the absolute advantage on producing both washing machine and refrigerators. So this theory talk about the country should go for exporting the products where they have the absolute advantage. In this case, the company A having absolute advantage on producing refrigerator and washing machines. So that is why the country A should concentrate on exporting both the products. This is you talk about the theory of absolute advantage. Second one is theory of relative advantage. Theory of relative advantage was coined by Ricardo. That is, the theory talks about if a country A is producing washing machine $100 and refrigerator $110, and but country B is producing $115 and $120 for refrigerators. Washing machine $115, $120 for refrigerators. The country A should go for the exporting because they do have a relative advantage as compared to the that is the country B. Country B and country A, that is, if you compare, country A has relative advantage in producing both washing machine and refrigerator. That is why the country A should go for the exporting of, that is, washing machine and refrigerator. This is coined by Ricardo. Then we talk about the next stage of, that is, endowment theory. Endowment theory is exact factor of endowment theory. What are the factors of endowment theory? The factors of production, which are our land, labor, and capital. They are known as the endowment. That is the factor of endowments. The three things which are involved in productions, that is known as the factor of endowments. So these three are involved in the factor of productions. That is why they are known as the factor of endowment. This theory talks about, that is, if a country is having advantage, or if a country is enjoying economies of scale on the three parameters on land, labor, and capital, this country should go for what? Should go for the exporting. Countries should go for the exporting if they do have a advantage on these three things. That is the factor of endowment theory. Then next theory is talking about, that is Leone text paradox, that talks about one country, if it is US should export labor intensive products and import capital intensive goods. Capital intensive products, it should US should export labor intensive products and import capital intensive goods. That is because you are in a paradox, because since US is a capital rich country, or it is a developed country, it has to go for, that is, exporting labor intensive products and importing capital intensive products. That is, it talk about the next theory of paradox, Leontief's paradox. Then next theory is competitive advantage. Competitive advantage theory talks about, is given by Michael Porter. One of the strategies, he has given this theory, which talks about, that is, the exports, that is, you go for the export if you have the comparative advantage. If you have comparative advantage, then you go for the exports. That is, if the country is enjoying comparative advantage in price, product, and promotions or place, then you go for the exporting to other countries. This is, we talk about the competitive advantage theory. Then the last theory is all about, that is the international product life cycle theory. You have come across with the product life cycle, which has four stages around: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. The four stages. But here, the international product life cycle talks about, that is, a country, that is, they can go for the export if the product reaches the maturity stage. If the product reaches the maturity stage, then the company should go for the export to the countries where it will be in the introduction stage. That is exactly one side example. I wanted to give an example. Suppose talking about, that is, suppose if you're talking about iPhones, or you're talking about any FMCG companies, they initially, what exactly, they enter to the Indian market once the product reach the maturity stage. Because what happens in the introduction stage, the company has invested a lot of money on research and development. Where that is why the price of the product is too high. So that is why the developing countries, they cannot afford to purchase the products in the introduction stage. So once the product is in the maturity stage, then the countries should go for the exporting this product to the developing countries where it will be in the introduction stage. So that is enters new market when the product in the maturity stage. That is, you talk about the product life cycle theory. So let us summarize the theories. What are the theories? The first theory is talking about theory of absolute advantage, which is if your country is enjoying, if you your country, that is, if you are comparing two countries, if country A is enjoying absolute advantage in producing both refrigerator and washing machine as compared to country B, then you go for the exporting of these products. Second theory talks about relative advantage. If the country A is enjoying relative advantage as compared to country B, then exactly you go for the exporting of the product. Factor endowment theory talks about, that is, the land, labor, and capital involved in the productions. If you have the you have the best resources, or you are able to getting the resources minimum price, or you are enjoying economies of scale, then you go for the you go for the exporting when you are enjoying economies of scale with the factors of endowments, which are land, labor, and capital. Next theory talks about, that is, US is a country which can go for the export when to the export for labor intensive products and import, that is, capital intensive products. Comparative advantage theory is talks about, that is, when your country is enjoying comparative advantage in terms of the product price, place, and promotions, then you go for the exporting. And last not the least is your international product life cycle theory. International product life cycle theory talks about a country can enter for export when the product is in the maturity stage, because the product is in the maturity stage, the consumption is getting saturated. That is why you can go for the exporting to the countries where it will be in the introduction stage. Already I have cited you. Even if that is ambassador, yesterday I have given you the example, that is ambassador is in the decline stage, it can go for the exporting to the other countries, nearby countries, because there it will be the in the initial phase or introduction phase. That is all are the theories associated with the international trade. Here we talk about one of the, let us discuss on that, that is, with respect to the PLC for international trade, take 3 examples of a choice and illustrate whether this theory is relevant or not. Yes, that is perfect. If you talk about medicines, or you talk about pharmaceutical companies, they go for exporting when the product reaches the maturity stage. We are going for the generic medicines. Generic medicine in the sense, that is, when the product is the mature stage, we go for the exporting of that product. When you're talking about the technological gadgets, that is the same thing. We're talking about the companies, they used to go for the exporting when the products reach in the maturity stage. But now the situation has changed. Now companies even also, they are launching the product across the globe in the same time. But this is exactly the 2 examples where we can see the product life cycle theory is applicable. Even before some years, even also the automobile companies, the two-wheeler companies, they used to do the same thing. They used to go for the export once the product reach in the maturity stage. This is all about the international theories of international trade. Then you talk about the balance of payment. Balance of payment is nothing but, that is exactly, it includes 3 accounts. Balance of payment includes the 3 accounts: current account, capital account, and official reserve account. The 3 things are comes under the balance of payment. The balance of payment, when you talk about the current account records all export and import trade in merchandise and services. It includes both goods and services, export and import of goods and services, that comes under the current account. Capital account takes into account the investment, long-term FDI, long-term investments, foreign direct investments, portfolio investment, or the short-term and long-term capital investment movement between the nations, that comes under the capital account. Then third one is official reserve account. What exactly? The account is a record of exports and imports of gold. What is that? that includes both export and imports of the good. The three things comes under the balance of payment. Balance of trade. What is balance of trade? When you are comparing imports and exports, then we are talking about the balance of trade. Balance of trade is nothing but the relationship between import and export is referred as the balance of trade. Yes, even a country is exporting more goods as compared to importing. So it has a favorable balance of trade, definitely, because you are in the positive side of the trade because you are exporting more as compared to import. But that is talking about the favorable balance of trade. But if the import of a country is more than the exports, what is that? The import is more than, matlab you are depending on the other countries more as compared to you do have, then exactly you are not in a favorable state. You are a unfavorable balance of trade. These are things we talk about the balance of trade. What are the stages of internationalization? There are 5 stages of internationalization. What is that? We talk about the initial stage, we talk about the domestic company. So domestic companies, they are, what is that? They want, they are familiar with the domestic markets. They are known the domestic the domestic rules and regulations. So that is why the domestic company they concentrate on the domestic market only. But when they see the market is getting saturated or there is a competition, they plan to enter into the other markets in terms of what the beginning I talk about in terms of exports. They go for the exporting when they see, when they realize there is a competition is they, when they anticipate that competition is going getting stopped, and also there is no scope for further expansions. During this time the companies they go for the exporting. This is all about the domestic company. The companies usually remains in the first stage of internationalizations. They concentrate on the domestic market because they are familiar with the domestic rules and regulations. They know the political scenario. They are more acquainted with the domestic environment. That is why they concentrate on the domestic markets. That is why this is the first stage of the internationalization. Second stage is, that is you talk about the international companies. Once they go further, once they see there are opportunities lies in the domestic, in the outside market, to maximize revenue or to profitability, they go for the international markets. Here they go for the international market. What exactly they target? The nearby markets. The nearby market where there is a see the opportunities. Because already we talk about that. That is when you have excess capacity or you have unutilized resources, then you can go for the international markets. That is where the company they go for the international company in the second stage of the internationalization. The start stage of internationalization is your internationalization is multinational companies. MNCs may be characterized based on structure, size, structure, and behavior and performance. The multinational corporations, what exactly? If you are going across national boundaries, or 25% of your revenue, 25% of revenue comes from outside home country, then you are considering is a multinational corporations. But exactly, multinational corporations are on, they can be characterized on based on their size, structure, behavior, and performance. Second one is if you are getting 25% of the revenue from outside home country, then you are also considering as a MNC, multinational corporations. Basically, you'll see in case of your domestic company, your approach we'll be discussing in next page. That is, you have approach is ethnocentric approach. In case of multinational corporation, you have polycentric approach. That is exactly. The third one you talk about the international company. That is an international company where you wanted to enter the market, the globe, enter the different markets where you have a geocentric approach. What is geocentric? You consider the whole market is one market. I can have one product, one offering altogether. I can have one product, one services, Same price can prevail, same promotions I can go for, then you go for the international company. This is exactly the way companies they used to go for the international, that is the stages of international. Done. Talking about the next one is talk about the what are the different approaches. What are the different approaches for international marketing? The international marketing approaches are different. What are the approaches? The company who is in the ethocentric approach, one of the approaches, it is all are important thing or important concept, ethocentric approach. What is that? When you see, that is the markets which you are targeting are also your kind of market, your similar kind of markets, similar kind of market, and you have a similar approach. Whatever is prevailing in the domestic market or home country, you will have the similar approach. That approach is known as the ethocentric orientations. Did you get? That is exactly we talk about the companies in the ethocentric approach. The companies they consider the other countries, they are just like us, they are similar like us. The same approach which is prevailing in the domestic market or the home country can be implemented in other countries. That approach is talking about the ethocentric orientations. This is exactly when you have the similar. But in case of your polycentric approach, in polycentric approach, you consider every country is unique. Every country is unique. You have to treat them differently, not equally. So here you have a different approaches for different countries. First one I talk about similar approach for other countries. Here I am talking about different approaches for different countries. Then exactly it is talking about the polycentric approach. Take the example of one of the polycentric approach. If you talk about the food, that is the QSR, quick service restaurants. The quick service restaurants cannot have a ethnocentric approach. You can have a polycentric approach because the taste, food, and preference of Indian customer is altogether different. That is why you cannot have the same food what is prevailing in other countries. You cannot offer the same. You have to have different products altogether for other countries. Then you are going for the polycentric approach. So that is why, that is in the beginning when McDonald they entered the Indian market in the late 90s, they failed in the Indian market because they introduced all standardized products in the Indian market. So Indian customer could not could not afford to accept all these products. When they realized, now there is a requirement to change, we have to change our orientations. They bought national Indianized product foods, Indianized foods, veg thali, mithai, all international. That is the what now all Indianized foods. Then they become successful because another talking about that. That is the second one is talking about the polycentric approach, polycentric orientations. Then the third one is regiocentric approach. Your approach is on basis based on the regions. What is that? South Asia. The region is South Asia. South Asia. South Asian regions. They have the India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan. They all comes from the South Asian regions. So they do have the similar. When you have one orientation, one approach for all one region, then that is known as the regiocentric orientation. If you consider this is similarity, they have a similarity because they belong to one region, and you have your approach will be same for one particular region, then it is known as the regiocentric orientations. Then last is your geocentric orientation. Geocentric orientation is all about you consider the whole globe is my market, single market. There is no difference lies between the different markets, different countries. So when you realize that and you have different, you have a common approach, you have a common approach or a standardized approach for all the countries, then the approach is known as geocentric orientations. So these are the four orientations in my international marketing. The first one is ethocentric orientations. Ethocentric orientation is all about when you have a similar approach, whatever is prevailing in the domestic market. When you have the similar approach, then you are going for the ethocentric approach. That is when you have different approach altogether for other countries, and then you treat differently countries, you treat countries differently. Then the approach is polycentric approach. When you have the approach on based on the region, based on the region, SAFTA, South Asian region, your North American regions, that you have a different approach altogether based on the region. Then your orientation, regio-specific orientations. When you consider the market is all about similar single market, there is no difference lies between the markets, and I can go for the standardized or similar kind of products and offerings to all the market. Then that is approach is known as the geocentric orientations. These are the four orientations, but this is one of the important question for your exams. Talking about that, let us discuss on that. As per the DAS approach, all countries have unique business environment, thus should be dealt differently. That is which one? This is here, already I have talked about, you have to treat unique, already I talked about unique one, you have to deal with differently. So that is here as per the polycentric approach. Polycentric approach, all countries have unique business environment, thus should be dealt differently. NAFTA union is talking about the NAFTA union is all about is a union, is a region, is based on their orientations, that is based on the polycentric orientations, because so you have a regiocentric orientation, regiocentric orientation. The first one is polycentric orientation. Question number one answer is polycentric. Second one is regiocentric. Regiocentric companies are dash in their business approach. What is there? They are different in their business approaches based on the region. Based on the different in their business approaches based on the regions. That is you talk about the regiocentric approach. The three, that is on based on the different orientations. Ethocentric orientations, polycentric orientations, regiocentric orientations, and geocentric orientations. What are the modes of entry to international market? Already we have talked about that in the beginning. That is already we have talked about. That is, you are a company operating in the domestic market. When you see or when you anticipate there are some opportunity lies in the international market, you have to decide what are the different modes of entry. How can you enter the international market? One of the best or easiest way, and the risk is involved less, is your exporting. Exporting is one of the best way to enter into the international markets. Because why? Because you are not going there, do not have any establishment. You are only going for the exporting because you have excess capacity. Second one is you have already enjoying economies of scale in your domestic market. Third one is exactly your domestic market is getting saturated or competition is there in the domestic market. Then you go for the exporting. Exporting is the first mode to enter into the international market. Done where that is your risk is minimum, risk is low, and that is less investment on research and development. You are not investing a lot on the research and development because you are not going there or you are not going to the outside market. You do not have your own establishment there. That is why your level of risk is less and your return is more. That is, but it is one of the best way to go for the export. Second one, you talk about the licensing. When you talk about the licensing, there are two things are there. One is licensee, licensor, and a licensee. So that is that both are involved. When you have research and development, when you are investing a lot of money in research and development, you cannot go directly, but you can you can give your license as far as technology is concerned. You can give license to the other parties to do the business. That is what exactly, that is the another way of entering into the international markets. And licensing, But when you have advantage on what? Now when you have advantage on technology. You have advantage on technology, then you can go for the license. You can give license to other parties who will, for your sake, they will do the business, and you can have your presence in the other markets because you have already given the license to the other parties. Franchising, the franchising, there are two parties used, that is one is franchisor, another is franchisee. Franchisor and but it is one of the best way to enter into the other markets. Why? And the risk is shared between whom? Between the franchisee and franchisor. Both the risks, the what are the risks? Already we have talked about that. The country risks, the currency risks, the country risks, currency risks, and the other risks we talk about, the exchange risks, currency risks, exchange risks, and country risks. That is can be minimized when you are going for the franchise. Companies, KFC, McDonald's, they are going for the franchising mode, where the local player is responsible, is managing the risks. To use the name and the other things, you have to pay certain amount of royalty to your franchisor. So that is why that is you talk about the franchising. Franchising is one of the most easiest way to enter into the other markets where the risk is minimum. You are minimizing the risk through because it is shared between the franchise and franchise. Franchise is taking all your risks, that is his investment is, but for the sake of only to use your name and that is other things, they are giving you the money. Then overseas productions, when you talk about the overseas productions, some companies that requires overseas production requires a lot of investment and investment on research and development. When companies they do have they are capital rich or capital intensive companies, they go for the overseas production. Like companies like HUL, P&G, they all involved in the overseas productions because they know that is if you are going for the overseas productions, you can able to use the resources. What are the resources? The resources, labor, that is other resources can be used and we can generate some employment, but we are getting a lot of benefits in terms of what the price of the product, because if you are have your establishment in India, you are getting the cheap labor and cheap resources. Then exactly that is why the our honorable prime minister is what exactly encouraging companies to come and make in India, come and produce here, encouraging other companies come and produce here, make in India, because that is the way, that is you can invest, you can generate employment, but meantime also you are using the resources and you can have an establishment. Joint venture is another way of entering into the, that is the markets. In case of joint ventures, what happened? The two parties, that is one is, suppose let us talk about Maruti and Suzuki. Maruti is a Indian company, Suzuki is an Japanese company. They have a joint venture. Matlab they do have an agreement on certain areas where Maruti is getting the technology support from Suzuki. Suzuki is getting the Indian, getting the access to the Indian markets. So both the companies are both the companies have a joint venture. When companies go for the joint venture, they when they do, their motive is to get benefits from the joint ventures. So during that time, they go for the joint ventures. Trunky project is one of the risk project where the government gives nod to the trunky projects, where the parties you have to go outside and you have to invest there, and that is where the government is involved. That we talk about the trunky projects. Then next one we talk about the merger and acquisitions. M&A, merger and acquisitions. What is that mergers? Some of the company best way to enter to the international market is exactly you have to have your, you can merge with other companies or you can acquire a new company. That is the way where there is a advantage you will be getting. What exactly? You can have access to the international market through the merger and acquisitions, but it requires huge capital. All countries cannot go for the merger and acquisition because it involves a lot of what a lot of investment, lot of capital. That is why company like Tata, Reliance, they can go for the merger and acquisitions, but all the countries cannot go for the merger and acquisitions because they know merger acquisition may even if you are getting benefits, but merger acquisition involves a lot of technical aspect, lot of you have to take the permission from the governments. Then many things are there which is talking about the merger and acquisitions. Then last is your wholly owned subsidiaries. Wholly owned subsidiaries where that is your own subsidiaries. You will have your own subsidiaries in other countries where they are involved in. Your parent company is not going your subsidiary. Subsidiary is going there and establishing business there. That is, we talk about the whole owned subsidiaries. They are involved there. You are not going. Your subsidiary is going. Your we talk about whole owned subsidiaries, wholly owned subsidiaries that is going there and doing business there. That we talk about. The next one is wholly owned subsidiaries. So these are the some of the modes enter into the international market. What are they? The first one is exporting. Already clarified. Exporting is all about you are not going, you are only exporting. When you see, when you realize, when you anticipate their opportunities, you have excess resources, or you have you wanted to minimize risks, then you go for the exporting. Then when you have licensing mode, you are going for the license, giving license to somebody to produce in on behalf of you. Then you are going for the licensing. You are going to franchising. Franchising, already I talked about franchising. Franchising the best way because your risk is shared between the franchisor. Franchisor is minimizing, franchisor is sharing all your risks. The risks of country risks, currency risks can be minimized through the franchisor, and that is why the companies they prefer to go for the franchising. Franchising. Best example I have cited here is exactly here. KFC, McDonald, they go for the franchising because they know if you are going for the franchising, that is the best way to do business without going there, without taking any risks. We can have our business. Overseas productions, even it requires a lot of investment. When companies like P&G, HUL, when they do have a high level of investment capacity, they go for the overseas production where they use the local resources for productions, where they're achieving the economies of scales and the cost per product remains low. That is, they can get they're enjoying that economies of scale. That is the best way. Joint ventures between shared between two parties. One is already I have given you example of Maruti and Suzuki, Bajaj and Allianz, Tata and AIG. They have gone for the joint ventures because they do have their own interest, own motive when they are going for the joint ventures. Next one is turnkey project. When you come company, when government is also involved, government nod gives the nod to go for the turnkey projects. You are going to offshore projects, overseas projects, which involves risks, but you can have your establish, you can presence in the international market through turnkey projects. Next one is merger and acquisitions. That is another way, but it requires already I talked about that. It requires a lot of investment, a lot of capital, and all regulatory frameworks when you are going for the merger and acquisition. But everybody cannot go for the merger and acquisitions. Some companies can go for the merger and acquisitions. Then we talk about the wholly owned subsidiaries. Wholly owned subsidiaries, what thus that is you can have your subsidiaries in the other countries where you can do the business, not going directly, not going. That is exactly you are going with the subsidiaries. That is the all modes of entry into the international market. So that is this is you talk about the modes of entry. Let us discuss one of the thing list of the international companies operating in India. Identify the modes of entry. What are they talking about that? What are the entry? So what about suppose talking about Bajaj Alliance? What is the entry? The entry is the mode is joint ventures. Talking about your ICICI Prudential. ICICI Prudential is joint ventures. है ना? Then we talk about McDonald franchising, KFC franchising. They are going for the franchising mode. Then it's Adani and Adani is exploring oil in other markets like in South Africa or in African markets, exploring oil and other refineries. That is the project is all about turnkey projects where the government of India is involved in that. So this is the some of the examples I can cite here on the, that is what are the different modes of entry by the companies operating in India, identify the mode of entry. Let us summarize the whole discussions. Before we wind up, let us summarize the whole discussions. In the beginning, we have talked about, that is, we have talked about what? Now we have talked about what are the dynamics. Introduction, I talked about the international trade dynamics is international trade and the theories of international trade. We will have discussed, already discussed. Stage adopted, managerial orientation discussed, mode of entry we have discussed. International trade, before you enter to the international market, any international company, any international company, before they go for, before you go for any company, before they go for the international, they have to go for the international trade. That is why you have to understand the international trade. International trade is exactly you are going for the export. And when you have that is excess resources, you are going for the international trade, or that is the market is getting competitive, or customer can benefit of lower price, then you are going for the benefits. Already we talk about that, and what are the challenges. You have to understand the environment dynamics. Objective of international trade, already I have talked, expand customer base, commercial benefits, and other benefits. Already we have talked about that. Then we talk about what are the principles underlying the international marketing. That is the first of all, you have to understand the market. You have to understand your own strength and weakness. Then you have to see what is the customer is looking for. Here, that is, you have to understand the customer value and value equations, competitive and differential advantage. Focus on delivering customer value. Then we talk about the 7 stages of concept international marketing. 7 stages already I talked about: environmental scanning. Then you are going, analysis, SWOT analysis, matching process of phase 1 and phase 2, fixing objectives, committing resources, monitoring. Then your time frame. Then we're talking about the different theories of international trade: theory of absolute advantage, theory of relative advantage, endowment theory, Leonard's paradox, competitive advantage theory, product and international life cycle theory. Then we talk about balance of trade, current account, capital account, official reserve accounts. Already we talk about that. We talk about the balance of trade. What is balance of trade? That is taking into consideration both export and import. When there is a export is more and import is less, then you have favorable, and reverse is unfavorable. And stages of internationalization already we talk about, that is domestic company, international company, multinational company, and international company. That is already we have talked about that. The approaches, already we have the ethocentric approach, we have talked about similar approach, polycentric approach, when you have what unique, you see unique approach for other countries, region specific approach, geocentric is standardized approach, common approach. Then already we talk about the modes of entry. These are the different modes of entry to the international markets. One is exporting, licensing, franchising, overseas productions, joint ventures, turnkey projects, merger and acquisitions, and wholly owned subsidiaries. That is, already I have talked about what are the benefits you will be getting, what is the best way to enter into the international market. That is already from that discussions already, that is we have talked about franchising is one of the best way, exporting, and also we talk about the joint ventures is another way to enter to the international markets. So these are the modes of entry into the international markets. So besides that, also we talked about in the beginning, also we talked about introduction of what are the different opportunities and challenges lies in the international market. This is all about the unit 2, which is conceptual framework of block 1 of international marketing. That is all. I think you have enjoyed the sessions. Thank you all.